is the first generation Crane Manhattan urinal, probably one of the most well-known standard Alta knockoffs. Now the question is, which came first, this urinal or the standard Alta? Well, the standard Alta has existed since the 1910s. Meanwhile, this urinal was first introduced in 1921. The interesting thing is, this urinal pretty much outlasted the standard Alta, being made up until sometime in the late 1970s, or early 1980s, before they finally redesigned it to its second generation. So this thing's been around for quite a while. The thing is, how does this thing compare to the standard Alta? Let's find out. Design-wise, it's a very classical design. Like I mentioned, this thing looks relatively similar to the standard Alta. The only thing different is that the sides around here are a little bit more smoother. And of course, the trapway opening kind of looks like that. It's a lot less rounded compared to the standard Alta. Let's have a look at a flush. This thing does flush kind of short, so I'm going to have to improvise. Not bad. Now let's have a look at ball rinse. I honestly think the ball rinse is a lot better on this urinal. Let me explain. As you can see, there's actually a decent bit of rim jets around the rim, even towards the front, as you may have saw. The problem with the standard Alta, while it does have rim jets around the side like this urinal, is that the main back rim jets is like this little ball right here, and it's just only a few rim jets. So the ball rinse seems to be a little bit worse on that. Meanwhile, the ball rinse on this looks pretty great. Here's another angle. Like the standard Alta, the functionality is pretty good. These things can last a good little bit, and as long as you give them a decent amount of pressure and water, they will function just fine. Even if it is a bit water-starved like this one. It still functions very well, despite those factors. And that is the first generation Crane Manhattan urinal, a very iconic standard Alta knockoff. I may argue it is a little bit better though, mostly with the ball rinse, but it's just about as good as the standard Alta. It's an iconic urinal, and even if it's a knockoff, it's a pretty good one. But let's put this urinal into the grading scale. Let's grade it. The overall design of the first generation Crane Manhattan is very similar to the standard Alta, in almost every way, except the fact that the outsides are a little bit more smoother. Outside of that, it's a pretty classical design. I give it a 7. Overall, the flush is not too bad. It's a pretty simple siphon jet flush, but that's to be expected. Obviously, it's a lot better if you overpower it, of course. But overall, it's a pretty solid flush, and I give it a 7. You know, the ball rinse is almost perfect on this urinal. In fact, it's definitely better compared to the standard Alta. With this urinal, the rim jets are actually throughout the entire urinal, even towards the front. Now, while the standard Alta does have rim jets towards the front, the back rim jets are a little bit different, operating from a circle from the top, which means the ball rinse really isn't the best on that urinal, and it's very pressure dependent. Meanwhile, throughout the Manhattan, there's rim jets everywhere pretty much. Now, the coverage could be a bit better in some areas, but overall it's definitely a lot better compared to the Alta. I give it a 9. It's pretty good. Functionality overall is actually pretty good. Compared to most small siphonic urinals of the modern era, these old school urinals were really built to last. Now obviously, like any urinal, they require a lot of care. But if you give them the proper care, proper pressure, and proper flush, these things can last a very good long time, and are rarely out of order. Overall, functionality gets an 8. Now let's talk about the overall value of this urinal. While this is not an original design by any means of the measure, the first generation Crane Manhattan urinal translates some decent qualities over from the standard Alta pretty well. But there is one thing that this urinal does a little bit better, and that's ball rinse. While it's obviously not 10 out of 10, it definitely rinses the ball a lot better compared to the standard Alta's weird ways of rinsing the rim. While I like the standard Alta and the first generation Crane Manhattan the same, I still think that the Crane Manhattan has a slight edge over the standard Alta. But overall, it's a pretty good urinal. That's why the value is an 8. The final score of the first generation Crane Manhattan urinal is a 39 out of 50, which translates to a 78 out of 100. While this thing is not an original design at all, it does carry over some solid attributes from the standard Alta. But one thing that's a little bit better for sure is ball rinse. While this is obviously not an original design, it's a pretty good copy of one.